The first question is, I have often heard you say that this life is no more than a dream. If that is the case, then is it possible that my next life dream be in the Stone Age? And maybe the earth is flat in that dream, the sun doesn't exist, and plants grow by moonlight, and concepts such as yug, kalp, pralaya will have no meaning then.
In a dream, anything is possible. So you can dream you're in heaven, or you're in hell, or you're in any world you can imagine. It's all possible in a dream, but it's only a dream.
Yeah, I think it was about the dream world, which is the same thing.
Yes. We in dreams, we experience all sorts of things. So it's all possible, but none of it is real. What is real is neither a dream, which is what is seen, nor even a dreamer, who is the one who is seeing, projecting and seeing the dream. What is real is only the reality of a dreamer, what the dreamer actually is. The dreamer is ego, the mixed awareness, I am so-and-so. That is, whenever we dream, we always experience, though we are a dreamer, we are experiencing ourselves as if we were a person within our dream. So the whole dream world we have created, but instead of experiencing ourselves as the creator of the dream world, we experience ourselves as a creature within that dream world. We always experience ourselves as a person in whatever dream world we have dreamt. The dreamer is ego, that which has identified itself as I am this person. That is not the reality. The reality is only the I am in that false awareness, I am this person. So that I am is the reality. And that I am, because that I am is, that is the ego is that mixed awareness, I am this person, I am this body. Because of the presence of the reality I am, ego seems to be real. And because everything else exists in the view of ego, everything else seems to be real. What is actually real is only I am. So we shouldn't be concerned about what we experience in a dream. That all phenomena, all objects, by investigating these objects, we cannot find the reality. In order to find the reality, we need to investigate the dreamer, the one who sees the dream. When we investigate the dreamer will subside and merge back into its source. Dreamer means ego. Ego will subside and merge back into its source. That source is that pure awareness I am. That alone is real. So let us not be concerned about dreams or what we can experience in dream. Theoretically, anything is possible in a dream, but it's all unreal. What is real is only I am. So let us not be concerned about dreams or even about the dreamer. What is the reality of a dreamer?
Michael, that's my question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's not about dream. What my mentee is that, after this life, can I be born in Stone Age, or can there should be linear progression in our life, right? I cannot go back to Stone Age and be a hunter and gatherer in my next life. Is it possible?
It's perfectly possible, because every state, that is, time is real, in each state has its own standard of time.
Okay.
For example, supposing you fall asleep, you may have a dream in which you may experience so many things in that dream, and then you may wake up and find actually you'd only dozed off for 5 minutes. But how did you experience so many things in that dream? Because each dream has its own standard of reality. In Bhagavan's time, occasionally news will come of that is, it's not only in India, even in Western culture, where there are some children who are able to remember things about their previous birth. Once an incident was reported in the newspaper, and Bhagavan pointed it out. That is, it seems in North India, in Gujarat or somewhere, a young boy. He was maybe 8 or 9 years old, or even younger than that, maybe 4 or 5 years old, 5 or 6, something like that. He was very young. And he was traveling with his parents on a train. And they came to a certain station, and suddenly that boy got very excited. And he said, "Oh, this is my village. This is where I live." And his parents were saying, "What do you mean? This is not, we've never been here before. You've never seen this." "No, no, no, no. This is where I live. This is where I live. Let me show you." He insisted that they get off the train. So they got off the train, and he excitedly led his parents out of the station and down a certain street and into a certain street. And he came to house and said, this is my house. This is the house where I live." And his parents were thinking, what on earth is this? And then 2 ladies came to the door of that house, 2 widows. And then he said, "These are my wives." And those ladies saying, what is this? What is this? And their husbands had died only some 2 or 3 years before, but the boy was older than that. So at first they were thinking it's not possible because this boy is too old to be our husband reborn. Then he was able to say things that convinced those ladies that he was actually their husband. But in this life, he had been born before that their husbands had died. Bhagavan pointed this out and said, this shows the unreality of time. In each state, there is a certain standard of time. That you can't compare the standard of time of one state to the standard of time of another state, because time is only in the mind. It's a mental creation. So you can dream that you were in the Middle Ages, or in the Puranic times, or in the Vedic times, or even pre-Vedic times. All is possible. And it
so the concepts of Yuga, Kalpa, Pralaya, all these have no meanings then. These are all concepts only that's true for this life, right?
That is, there is so many beliefs. All these beliefs have a certain degree of reality. They're real, they appear real from certain perspectives. So this idea of the cycle of yugas,
yes,
this is we can say this is a metaphor for the development of the soul. That is, we start off when in our primitive state, we are very selfish. We can care only about ourselves. Might is right. We try to grab what we can for ourselves, and we don't really care much about other people. As we progress spiritually, slowly our mind becomes purified. And instead of just caring about me, I begin to care about my circle of concern becomes a bit wider. I care about my family, my wife or husband, my parents, my children, and so on. Slowly, my area of concern develops, and then I care about my tribe or my caste or my community, and then it spreads further. We care about our country. Then we become more altruistic. We care about the whole of humanity. We don't want anyone to suffer. So slowly, we progress from a very selfish state to being less and less selfish, more concerned about others. And the others who we're concerned about, at first the others are my family or my people of my religion or my country or whatever. Slowly, we even these differences, and we see ourselves in all people. So this is how we progress from stages of immaturity and impurity of mind to we become more mature, and the mind becomes purer, and eventually we reach a stage of purity that we are ready to surrender ourselves completely, give up all identification, not only identification with the person we seem to be, but also with our caste, with our creed, with our nation, with everything. We cease to identify ourselves with anything. Thereby, we surrender ourselves completely. So these different stages of development are metaphorically described as the different yugas.
Okay.
It's all this is metaphor. For those who are at a lesser stage of maturity, these yugas seem very true. Yes, all that is everything. All development is going on within ourselves, but we project that development outside. And we'll say, oh, now is Kali Yuga, it's a very bad time. We look at the world, it's such a bad place and everything.
Okay.
The world, according to Bhagavan, is a projection of our own vasanas. So if we see an imperfect world, it means we are imperfect. Or what the seer is imperfect, not we are imperfect. So therefore, we have to investigate ourselves. Who is the one who sees all this? If we investigate and find out who is the one who sees all this, then we will find we were ever perfect. There is only Satya Yuga, nothing but Satya Yuga.
Okay, it makes perfect sense when you say that all these are metaphors.
Yeah, so there is so many, that is Hinduism, or not even Hinduism, let's say Indic religions or Dharmic religions, the whole family of religions. It includes what is nowadays called Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism and Sikhism, all these, they're a whole family of religions. The distinction between one and the other, it's fairly arbitrary, because even within the so-called Hindu religion, what is nowadays called the Hindu religion, there are so many differences. That is, there are Advaitas in many senses closer to a certain to Buddhism, for example, certain forms of Buddhism, than it is to certain forms of Hinduism. So all these distinctions are fairly arbitrary. But let us take it all as one family. There are so many different beliefs, so many different philosophies, so many different practices. Why all this diversity? Because people are diverse. Different beliefs, different practices are suitable for us at different stages of our spiritual development. So that is why Bhagavan said we need not quarrel. Other people definitely have other views to us. We may believe this world is a dream, but within our dream, there are so many people who seem to be believing the dream is real. So we are not here to argue with others, or even to look down on their beliefs and their practices, because what they are believing and practicing is what is appropriate to them at their present stage of spiritual development. We will have already gone through all these things. So we need to have a very broad view of these things and all the different beliefs. Like there are so many different accounts of creation. There are so many different this explanation, as you say, about the four yugas and all these different, and there's so many Puranic stories. They're all appropriate to people at different stages of spiritual development. And even within these, like in the Puranas and Ityasas, there are so many stories are there. Those in stories, if you go to Puranikas or they will explain the stories in certain way, but the same stories can be explained in different ways according to our level of maturity. So, for example, Mahabharata, there are so many stories there. They're teaching very basic, a lot of those stories are teaching very basic morality. But some of them are also teaching very deep philosophical principles. And sometimes the same story can have a more superficial interpretation and a deeper interpretation. Both those interpretations are true. They're both appropriate for people at different levels of maturity. So all the absolute truth, what is the absolute truth? The Paramatika Satya is na-nirodha, there's no destruction, na-cha-upati, there's no, why is there no destruction? Because nothing has ever come into existence. The ultimate truth, there's no sadhaka, there's no bondage, there's no liberation, there's nothing. What is alone is as it is. That is the ultimate truth, is ajata. So ajata negates all other beliefs. That doesn't mean other beliefs are not appropriate at different stages of spiritual development. Bhagavan, though Bhagavan's experience was ajata, his main teaching is not ajata. He told us ajata is the ultimate truth, but it's not a useful teaching. It is of some use to understand it's the ultimate truth. But what Ajata says, there's no ego, no world, nothing. So Ajata doesn't acknowledge that there's any problem. So Bhagavan, though that is his experience, there's everything is perfect as it is because there's no such thing as imperfection. But we seem to be having a problem. We seem to be bound to this little person. So Bhagavan comes down to our level and accepts, yes, all this seems to exist, but to whom does it seem to exist? It only seems to exist in the view of ourself as ego. Only when we rise as ego does all this seem to exist. Therefore, we should investigate ourselves, the one to whom all this appears. If we investigate ourselves, we will subside and merge back into our source. Then we will know that we alone are, and that nothing else has ever appeared. There never was any ego, never was any world. So Ajata is a description of our goal. But in order to reach that goal, we need Bhagavan's teachings, which are what are called Drishti Shrishti Vada. That is, everything appears only because we see it. So to whom does it all appear? To me. We need to investigate that me. That is the highest level of teaching, because Ajata is beyond teaching. When Ajata is neither teacher nor taught nor anything to teach. Ajata is the ultimate truth. So as far as teaching is concerned, Drishti Shrishti Vada is the highest teaching. But not everyone is ready to accept. According to Drishti Shrishti Vada, all this is a dream. Most people during most of our spiritual development, we were not ready to accept that all this was a dream. We took all this to be very real. So different levels of different explanations were appropriate to us at different stages of our spiritual development. That's why Bhagavan said teachings have to be appropriate to the one who is taught. There can't be any one teaching applicable to all people. Bhagavan teaching may be the highest, but there's no use in going to a kindergarten and starting to teach PhD level nuclear physics or something. Children won't understand. You have to teach them first ABC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 times 2 is 4, and so on. All these things, it has to be taught. That's the appropriate thing to teach them at that level.
Thank you, Michael. That was good.
The next question is, it's a question about vasanas. And it says, I heard someone mention that vasanas are something we are conscious of, whereas sanskaras are unconscious in our mind. I just want to verify if there are differences between vasanas and sanskaras.
No, I don't think. I think the two terms are used synonymously. Some people equate vasanas or samskaras with the modern concept of the unconscious mind, the sort of Freudian concept of the unconscious mind. It is not so. We are conscious of our vasanas. That is, when all our thoughts arise out, they're the sprouting of our vasanas. Why we think certain thoughts? Because we have an inclination to think those thoughts. When our attention is very much outward going, we may overlook the vasanas. We are aware of the sprouted form of the vasanas, the likes, the dislikes, the desires, the thoughts, the feelings, the perceptions, everything. The whole world is nothing but a projection of our vasanas. So because of our looking outwards, we may overlook the vasanas. But if we begin to look within, we can clearly see, why do we think certain thoughts? Because we have an inclination to think those thoughts. Some people say, oh, thoughts come involuntarily. It's not, we've got no control over what we think. That is not so. People who say like that haven't gone very deep in this path. If we go deep in this path, we will clearly see whatever we think it's because of our vasanas that we think this or that. It's when we allow ourselves to be swayed by a certain vasana that we think about the object that vasana is pertaining to. So if we look within, we can clearly see. I mean, try to practice Atma-vichara and tell me that vasanas are unconscious. We're very, very clearly conscious of them and how they're swaying our mind. So just because for some people may overlook the vasanas, because if your mind is outward going, you don't see the seeds that are giving rise to these thoughts. You are aware only of the sprouted form. But the more you try to turn within to see what you actually are, the more clearly you will become aware of the vasana, of those thoughts in their seed form. The seed form of thoughts are the vasanas. So I don't think there's, I mean, some people may say, there are all sorts of, people understand these things in different ways according to their level of spiritual maturity. So some people may say samskaras you don't know about, the vasanas you're not aware of, the vasanas you are aware of. These distinctions may seem real to those people, but actually there's no such distinction. They're two terms, but they're used to refer to the same thing. And what they refer to is our inclinations. And we're aware of our inclination. That is, everyone is aware of their inclinations, but they're aware of them only when you allow the inclination to rise. First, it's just an inclination, then it develops into a liking, then it develops into a desire, then it develops into anger, hatred, all these other things come from that. So there are different levels of sprouting. So depending on how extroverted our mind is, we may be aware of it more strongly at different levels. But the more we turn within, the more we will be able to recognize the seed form of the desires and the likes and the dislikes and the thoughts and so on. It's all these are only sprouting from our own inclinations. And we become aware of those inclinations in their subtlest form to the extent to which we turn within. Does that adequately answer that question?
I think the person
right.
Now the next question is that, does Michael have a tip for the most direct and quickest way to return to the self once a vasana has taken hold and we are in the grip of its jaws?
Well, it's not my tip, it's Bhagavan's tip. Bhagavan has given us many tips. One of his most effective, that is, when we are under the sway of our vasana, or of any vasana, we are attending to something other than ourselves. That is, we attend to things other than ourselves only under the sway of our vasana. So whenever we attend to anything other than ourselves, whenever we're aware of anything other than ourselves, we are then under the sway of a vasana. Bhagavan gave us a very simple and direct way to turn our attention back to ourselves. Whatever we are aware of, who is it who is aware of it? Whatever appears, to whom does it appear? So turning that in so many ways, Bhagavan had pointed out to us, that is, we are the subject. All other things, all vishayas are objects. So no object can appear without it appearing to something. To whom does it appear? To me. So we turn our attention back to ourselves. Bhagavan has given us, like this, he's given us many pointers, but the key is love. We can turn our attention back to ourselves to the extent to which we have a liking to do so. If our Vishaya vasanas are still strong, we will turn back to ourselves and again jump outwards. So by practice, by persevering in this practice, we need to slowly weaken the inclination to go outwards. In other words, we need to weaken our Vishaya vasanas. There is really no, that is, Bhagavan's path is the direct path. There's no shortcut for a direct path. That is, the direct path is itself a shortcut. So what is our goal? To know what we actually are. The direct way to know what we actually are is to look at ourselves. There can't be any shortcut. We need to just persevere in this practice.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I understand.
Right.
There's a question from Elena. Elena, did you want to ask the question?
Yes, thank you, Shalini. Hello, Michael. Thank you very much for this talk.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question. Maybe it is a little bit strange, or I just, because you said that Vairagya, as I understand, full Vairagya, automatically means Jnana, as I understood.
Yes.
And in this regard, I just wanted to ask, for example, Manolaya, which is when you don't have any thoughts. As I understand, this is a state, just a state. If, for example, Vairagya is, as I understand, if it is jnana automatically, then it is sahaja samadhi already, right, or not? And Manolaya is. I just want to make clear for myself, because it seems that Manolaya automatically doesn't mean Manonasa, because we didn't turn within 100%.
Yeah.
We didn't turn within, but Vairagya. If it is full Vairagya, then it means that it is jnana. That it means that maybe it is complete surrender or something like this.
Okay. We have to, that is what Bhagavan has said in those 3 sentences. He first defines what is Vairagya, is not attending to anything other than ourselves. And jnana is not leaving ourselves. And he then says these 2 in truth are one. We are now in the stage of practice. In the stage of attainment, that is the stage of perfect vairagya and perfect jnana. That is, we never leave ourselves and we never attend to anything other than ourselves. But during practice, that is our goal, never to leave ourselves. So we are moving in that direction. So whatever vairagya we achieve during practice is only partial vairagya. It's not total vairagya. Total vairagya and total jnana are one and the same. But why Bhagavan says they're one and the same? Because he's saying not attending to anything other than ourselves is vairagya. Not leaving ourselves, that means not ceasing to attend to ourselves, is jnana. They are one and the same. So we can say, to the extent to which we do not leave ourselves, in other words, to the extent to which we do not allow our attention to move away from ourselves, to that extent we have jnana, and to that extent we have vairagya. So ultimately, perfect jnana is the state in which we never leave ourselves, because that is the state when ego is, that's Manonasa, when there's no ego to leave ourselves, and therefore there's no one to attend to anything other than ourselves. As far as practice is concerned, to the extent to which we hold on to ourselves, to that extent we are not attending to other things. So in that sense, Bhagavan says they're one and the same. That is, the word jnana simply means knowing or knowledge, or it can mean awareness also. So we need to understand words according to the context. In some contexts, jnana is used to referring to, for example, the triad, the triputi of knower, knowing, and known. One of the set of terms that is used to describe this is jnata is the knower, jnana is knowing, and jnaya is what is known. Their knowing means knowing things other than ourselves. So we need to understand in the context when words are used, what they mean in the particular context. In verse 13 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, for example, Bhagavan says, Jnanamam tane me, oneself who is jnana alone is real. There jnana means pure awareness. But in the next sentence he says, Nānavam jnanam ajnanamam. Jnana of which is many is ignorant. There he's talking about knowing things other than ourselves. So we need to understand in the context what he means. hear what he means in this paragraph when he says that not leaving ourselves is jnana, to the extent to which we are then not leaving ourselves, in other words, to the extent we are holding on to self-attentiveness, we are thereby, to that extent, in the state of pure awareness. It's obviously not absolute pure awareness, but we are coming close to the state of pure awareness by holding on to ourselves. And to the extent we hold on to ourselves, we are not attending to other things. So we have to understand, we have to read it and understand what is the implication in the context in which it's being used.
Yes, thank you. I just thought that somehow I thought that Vairagya, because the problem is, in my opinion, like as I see it, that we have to direct our attention within. This is the main.
That's all there is to it.
Yes, this is just the main thing.
Yes.
And again, in my own how I saw it, see it, that Vairagya is not attending to other things, not be concerned about other things. I mean that it's not attending, not letting our attention go somewhere else. But at the same time, somehow I didn't connect it with directed within automatically. This is
but then so we need to understand these things in context. You mentioned Manolaya. Manolaya, we're not attending to anything other than ourselves.
Yeah.
Sleep is a state of Manolaya. In sleep, we're not attending to anything other than ourselves. But it wouldn't be appropriate to call that Vairagya, because as soon as we wake up, we bounce out. So we need to understand in the context. That is, we need to, when a statement is made, we need to understand in what context we are to apply that statement.
So you mentioned sleep.
Yes.
Sleep. But also Manolaya can be a result of efforts. I mean,
yes.
Not only sleep or some other state like.
But any state of Manolaya. Manolaya means dissolution of mind. So there's no mind in Manolaya. Whether there are different ways of attaining Manolaya. We attain Manolaya every day when we get too tired, so we fall asleep. If you are in a car accident or something and have a head injury, you may be in a coma. That's a state of Manolaya. If you have to undergo a major surgery and you're put under general anesthesia, that is Manolaya. That is Manolaya achieved by some drug. So Manolaya can be brought about in a variety of ways. The yogis bring about Manolaya by practices such as pranayama. They call the state of Manolaya that they achieve as Kevala Nivikalpa Samadhi. It's Nivikalpa because it obliterates all difference between subject and object. So it's Vikalpa means distinction or differences. So it's without Vikalpa. So because there's no subject or object there, from the perspective of the yogi, because the yogi achieves that state through deliberate effort, when they wake up from that state, they say, oh, that was different to sleep, because in that state, I continued, their awareness remained in that state, whereas in sleep, awareness doesn't remain. That is so if you ask yogis, they will say, oh, Kevala Nivikalpa Samadhi is definitely different to sleep. But according to Bhagavan, they're both states of Manolaya. There's no difference between them. The difference appears only from a perspective of mind in waking or dream. That is because the yogi is aware when you're tired, you go to sleep. And according to yogis, that's a state of darkness. Whereas they say Nivikalpa is Samadhi is a state of light. But Bhagavan said that difference between darkness and light is because they don't recognize they recognize the awareness that remains in Samadhi, because they went into that deliberately. They don't recognize the awareness that remains in sleep. But actually, they are one and the same. All differences arise only in the mind. In a state where the mind is dissolved, in Manolaya, there can't be any differences.
Yes, I understand about Manolaya, but and it seems that full Vairagya has nothing to do to Manolaya, because Vairagya is something else. It's quality. It's
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
different. So because it is from already some level of higher level of understanding already of things, because it is conscious refusing of looking at something at all.
Exactly. This is why Bhagavan said that achieving Manolaya is of no use. Because Manolaya, even if you call it Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it's a temporary state of dissolution of mind. In this dissolution, when the mind is dissolved, there are no the vasanas are there only, they're ego's vasanas. When ego is dissolved, its vasanas are dissolved along with it. So we cannot weaken our vasanas in the state of Manolaya. That's why Bhagavan used to tell that story of the yogi on the banks of the Ganga. He went into Nirvikalpa Samadhi for 300 years, but when he woke up, the first thought that popped up in his mind was, where's my water? And he asked it angrily because he was thirsty. When he went into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he was feeling thirsty. He asked his disciple to bring the water, but before the disciple could bring the water, he'd gone into Nirvikalpa Samadhi again. He remained in that state for 300 years. But when he woke up, the last thought that was in his mind before he went into Nirvikalpa Samadhi was the first thought that arose. So Bhagavan said even the most superficial thought was not eradicated by Nirvikalpa Samadhi. What to say of all the vasanas? The vasanas remain intact. That the vasanas are not destroyed by Manolaya. In order to eradicate vasanas, in the waking or dream state, we have to avoid being swayed by our Vishaya vasanas. In order to avoid being swayed by them, we need to cling to I am. So not leaving I am, that is jnana, that is also, but to the extent we don't leave I am, we are not attending to other things. So that is vairagya. So the weakening of our Vishaya vasanas and the strengthening of our sattvasana is possible only by this practice of self-investigation, which we can do only in the waking and dream state. That's why Bhagavan always discouraged people going into any type of Manolaya. Even if it's called by a fancy name such as Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Bhagavan said it's simply Manolaya. There's no difference whatsoever. The differences between Manolaya, between Nirvikalpa Samadhi and sleep, but it's claimed by the yogis, is only because they fail to recognize that the same awareness that they experience in Manolaya, they are also experiencing in sleep.
And to me, the important thing, I mean, that I just made clear for myself that actually Vairagya has nothing to do to Manolaya at all.
No. It's the yogi, in order to practice yoga, you must have a certain degree of vairagya. But the yogi is driven by desire. The yogi is seeking an experience. So it is in the path of jnana, we are not seeking any experience. We are seeking to know the reality of the experiencer. We're not seeking to gain anything new. We are seeking what is it that is ever present. So it's a very different path. That's why Bhagavan said, if you're following the path of yoga, before the mind goes into Manolaya or Nirvikalpa Samadhi or whatever you call it, that is, before going into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, firstly they have to achieve a certain degree of quietness of mind. When they achieve complete quietness of mind, then the mind dissolves into laya. So you can, Bhagavan said, to those who who were attracted to yogic practices such as pranayama. He said, okay, practice to a certain extent, but before you go into nirvikalpa samadhi, you need to direct your attention back towards yourself. That is what Bhagavan is referring to in verse 14 of Upadēśa Undiyār. In verse 13, he says, dissolution of the mind is of two kinds, laya and nasa. What is dissolved in laya will rise again. What is dissolved in nasa will not rise again. So he first draws that distinction. He divides all types of dissolution of mind into two categories, laya and nasa. Our aim obviously isn't laya, because laya the mind's going to rise again. Our aim is nasa. So how to achieve that nasa? Bhagavan is here talking in the context of yoga. He says the mind which subsides as a result of the mind which subsides as a result of curbing the breath, such a mind needs to be directed on vari. Vari, that word or has two meanings. Or is a verb that means to investigate or know. Or is also a form of oru. Oru means one. Before a vowel, oru becomes or. So or can mean one, and it can also mean investigating or knowing. We can take it in both senses there. What Bhagavan is, the primary meaning, what Bhagavan meant by all vari, is the path of investigating. In other words, the path of self-investigation. So the implication of that verse is when the mind is quietened by means of pranayama, before it subsides in laya, we need to direct it on this path of self-investigation. In other words, we need to turn our attention back towards ourselves. Who is the one? Who am I who am doing pranayama? Who am I who have achieved relative quietness of mind? We need to turn our attention back. That is the implication. If we take it in the sense of one path, what is the one path by which the mind will be destroyed? Bhagavan has made clear in so many places, it's only by directing our attention back towards ourselves. So whether we take it as one path or the path of investigation, it's referring to the same simple path of self-attentiveness. That is the key to bringing about the destruction of the mind. So he says, if you direct it on the one path, its form will die. And then in the next verse, he says, for the great yogi who has attained the reality by the destruction of the mind, there's not a single action to do. So yoga becomes unnecessary. All actions become unnecessary. In fact, there's no doer left to do any action.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you.
So as I say, what Bhagavan, because your question originated from this, what Bhagavan said in the 11th paragraph, we need to understand this in the context. What Bhagavan is talking about there, he's talking about the practice. So to the extent to which we don't attend to other things, to that extent we have vairagya or nasa. To the extent we don't leave ourselves, that is jnana. Mm-hmm. So it may not be perfect vairagya or perfect jnana, but at least partial. So it's that. When he says the two or one, he means yes. To the extent you don't leave yourself, to that extent you don't attend to other things. When we cling to ourselves so firmly that we dissolve back into our source, that is the state of perfect jnana, and that is also the state of perfect vairagya. We have to take it in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand. Thank you very much.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing, Michael, which I think you sort of mentioned, is that in yoga as well, the sort of nirvikalpa samadhi and savikalpa samadhi are temporary states, and then you've got the sort of sahaja samadhi or the dharma, which is the permanent state from where that sort of self-awareness remains regardless of whatever. So I guess it's just sort of which of the steps along the way one is focusing.
There are two things about yoga. Yoga, firstly, the philosophy of yoga is quite different to the philosophy of Advaita. Yoga philosophy is basically the same as Sankhya, which it's a dualistic system. For them, there are two realities. There's Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha means the subject, and Prakriti means objects, to put it in simple terms. And they think that they refer to Purusha as pure awareness, but there are many pure awarenesses according to them. So it's quite a different philosophy, Sankhya philosophy. That is, it is a step towards Advaita because it draws a distinction between subject and object, which is where Sankhya ends, Advaita begins, because Advaita begins with that discrimination between subject and object. So yoga is, you can say, the applied Sankhya applied in practice. So the yogi's aim is to remain as pure awareness, but their idea of that state of remaining of pure awareness, their idea of moksha, is you still are separate. You're still a separate pure awareness. So it's a different. Their goal is, though it seems similar to the goal of Advaita, it's actually, they think you've just got to separate Purusha from Prakriti and remain in Kaivalya. Kaivalya means a state of isolation, of oneness. So that is their goal. But according to Bhagavan, the true state of Kaivalya is the state where ego is destroyed and where only one remains. And according to Bhagavan, in order to achieve that, however much you may follow any yoga practices, the yogi can achieve that Manonasa only by directing the mind on this path of investigation. That is Bhagavan's verdict. Yogis may not agree with him, but we're not here to argue with yogis. So long as they're satisfied with their path, that's fine. But if they want to achieve the ultimate is only the annihilation of ego, then they have to come to this path. So all these other paths, they're all good at their own stage, because people have different inclinations. Some people are more drawn to Bhakti Marga. Some people are more drawn, people who want to do something and to experience something, for them, they're more attracted to yoga. These are all good paths. I mean, they're good, but their goals are not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal, as Bhagavan made clear, is only the dissolution of ego. But I don't say this because I don't want to argue with the yogis, because so long as they're satisfied with their path, then that's fine. But sooner or later, they will be dissatisfied, because we can't attain satisfaction in anything other than the state of complete dissolution of ego.
Thanks, Michael. There's a question here. It says, a couple of months ago, I came to understand and experience the desireless state for a number of weeks. Prior to this, I had only had glimpses for a few minutes and once for a few days. I was then surprised when I became triggered by an event and felt completely lost again and in the grip of a vasana, which I linked to a childhood trauma. Eventually, after several days of battling with it, the vasana faded and I returned to the natural peaceful state again. My question is, if one becomes triggered by something, is there a way to dispel the vasana in that moment, or is it best to let the vasana run its course?
Firstly, the state of egolessness, so long as we never achieve the state of desirelessness, complete desirelessness, perfect desirelessness is possible only when ego is annihilated. That is, so long as ego remains, we have Vishaya vasanas, which are the seeds that give rise to desire. So we're never totally desireless. We may seem to be less disturbed by our desires, but it's still, desire remains so long as there's ego. Desire, the very nature of ego to have Vishaya vasanas, which are the seeds that give rise to desires and so on. Sorry, can you ask? Sorry, I said that for clarification and I've now forgotten what was the question at the end.
It says that my question is that if one becomes triggered by something, is there a way to dispel the vasana in that moment? Or is it best to let the vasana run its course?
Right. It is best always to cling to I am. To the extent to which we cling to I am, we are thereby not being swayed by the vasana. It may seem to us that a certain vasana has been triggered by a certain external event, but that is not actually the case. One thing we need to understand from Bhagavan's teachings is that causation is cause, that is, what is the cause for everything? The first cause is our rising as ego. Only because we rise as ego, everything else appears. So when we rise as ego we have Vishaya vasanas, and the Vishaya vasanas are the cause of everything else. So though it may sometimes seem to us that a certain external event or experience triggers a certain vasana, a certain inclination within us, that event is not the cause of that vasana. The vasanas are always there, ready to sprout. Sometimes certain external things may seem to trigger vasanas, but actually the real cause is the vasana. It's the vasana that gives rise to the external experience. So we need to understand why this is very important, because so long as we think, people often talk about, oh, it's conditioning. Conditioning is, when people are talking about conditioning, they think external things are causing my present state of mind. Because I had a traumatic childhood, or because of this, or because of that, I therefore am undergoing this experience now, and I'm responding to it in a certain way. Whatever we experience, whatever happens outside, is a projection of our Vishaya vasanas. So we need to look for the cause for everything within ourselves. If a certain event happens and a certain vasana is triggered, but we cannot blame that event. We have allowed ourselves to be swayed by that vasana. When we allow ourselves to be swayed by that vasana, then we experience, the mind gets drawn away from ourselves. In order to avoid being swayed by any vasana, it doesn't matter what external experiences may happen. To whom does it happen? To me. We need to turn our attention back to ourselves. So the more we cling to self-attentiveness, the less we will be concerned about whatever may happen outwardly, the less we will be affected by whatever may happen outwardly. If we are affected, the cause for our being affected is not the external event, it's our vasana.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, it's like it's turning the whole thing around, isn't it? Rather than seeing the thing outside, it's actually coming.
Yes.
So did I sort of create this to happen to?
Yes,
for the trigger for it to come out somehow.
Yes. Ultimately, Bhagavan said, whatever we see outside, whatever we experience, is a projection of our vasanas. However, we need to understand this in the context of the law of karma also, because when we allow ourselves to be swayed by our Vishaya vasanas, our attention goes outwards. When our attention goes outwards, we experience certain things. However, what happens to us is according to destiny. Destiny is the fruit of actions that we've done in previous lives. So the actions that we've done in previous lives, we did under the sway of our Vishaya, of our vasanas. That is, only those actions that we do under the sway of vasanas bring about, create fruit, which we may later experience as prarabdha. That is, whenever we allow our attention to move away from ourselves, we have been swayed by one vasana or another. It's only under the sway of our vasanas that we allow our attention to move away from ourselves. Allowing our attention to move away from ourselves is what is called thought. And thoughts give rise to, thought is a mental activity. action, the mental activities give rise to speech and actions. So the actions we do by mind, speech, and body under the sway of our Vishaya vasanas are what are called agamya. Agamya are the actions that bear fruit. The fruit of agamya gets stored in what is called sanchita. And sanchita means a heap or pile. It's a vast store of fruits of actions we've done in the past, but we are yet to experience. From that sanchita, Bhagavan, or God or Guru, whatever you want to say, selects for each lifetime certain fruit for us to experience. So all that we are to experience in this lifetime is a selection of the fruits of actions that we've done in past lifetime. So whatever action we do by under the sway of our vasanas in this lifetime isn't going to change our prarabdha, our destiny. What we are destined to experience, that is already predetermined.
Wow.
What we experience is all a projection of our vasanas, but which, a simple analogy, what is seen on the screen in a cinema is a projection of a film, of a reel of film in the cinema projector. What reel is selected for you to watch in this lifetime, that is selected by Bhagavan. So you've got no control over what is to be projected. But you do have control over whether what is being projected is your vasanas. Whether you allow yourself to be swayed by vasanas or not is the crucial thing. If you allow yourself to be swayed by those vasanas, you are thereby doing actions by mind, speech, and body, and consequently creating more fruit and strengthening those vasanas also. Strengthening those vasanas and creating new vasanas. So by clinging to self-attentiveness, we are not allowing ourselves to be swayed by whatever vasanas may arise. Some vasanas may be arising according to prarabdha, some may be arising according to our own volition, our own responses. But the key freedom we have is not allowing ourselves to be swayed by vasanas, by clinging to self-attentiveness. So clinging to self-attentiveness, that is the key to freedom. Right. So long as we allow ourselves to be swayed by our Vishaya vasanas, we are caught up in an endless cycle of karma, of doing actions which bear fruit, which we then have to experience, and it's endless. The way to break this, it's a vicious cycle. The way to break this vicious cycle is by clinging to what is not an action. Instead of doing, we need to cling to being. Being means I am. We ourselves, clinging to our own existence, our own being.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. It's I think it was just I was trying to work out where this was coming from, and I traced it to a pattern that was happening in my life to do with this same vasana that was coming up. And in order to try and dispel it, I was trying to understand it, and so I linked it back to childhood things that had happened.
Yes.
I suppose that's more of a psychological way of dealing with something.
The truth is, whatever we are to experience is the fruit of our past actions. But in the midst of experiencing that, we are free to want to experience things that we're not destined to experience, or to avoid experiencing what we are destined to experience, and we're free to try to do so. So we have freedom of will and freedom of action. But we have no freedom to change what is destined to happen. So there are two forces working in our life. There's destiny, which we can say is God's will, because it's God who selected those things, and there's our will. So these two things are working in our life. We often cannot unravel them, because whatever we are to experience, there are certain actions we need to do in order to experience what we're to experience. So those actions we are made to do by God.
Right.
But though we're made to do an action by God, doesn't exonerate us from responsibility, because in most cases we're also being swayed by our vasanas. So we cannot unravel these two, and we need not unravel them. What we need to understand is whatever is destined to happen, it is going to happen. We cannot avoid that.
Yeah.
So because we cannot avoid it, it need not concern us. Whatever actions we are made to do by Bhagavan, in order for us to experience our prarabdha, we will be made to do. We cannot avoid that. Which, to what extent any action is driven by his will or by our will, we cannot know. So we need not concern ourselves with action.
Yeah.
What causes us to do action under the sway of our vasanas is our allowing ourselves to be swayed by those vasanas. So to unravel this whole vicious cycle of karma, we need to cling to ourselves, cling to I am, and thereby not allow ourselves to be swayed by any vasana. Doesn't matter what the vasana is, any vasana that draws our attention away from ourselves, that is what Bhagavan calls the Vishaya vasana. We need to, as and when those vasanas arise, we need to cut them down. As he says in that, as and when the enemy come out of a fortress, we need to cut them down. How do we cut them down? By clinging to self-attentiveness. That's all we need to understand.
Yeah.
But people try and work out, but is this action according to my will or is it according to destiny? Nobody can answer that. Bhagavan alone knows that. And most actions, both forces are working.
Yeah.
That is Bhagavan's will and our will, they're working. Sometimes they may be working in sync, sometimes they may be working, pulling us in different directions. But what is to be experienced will be experienced. What we are to do in order to experience that will be made to do.
Yeah, that was my experience in the first part of what I said is this experience I had of the stateless state or whatever that lasted several weeks.
Yes.
In that time, I understood that there was that everything was perfect as it is, and whatever happens to you is kind of God's will, and there is no free will. That was my experience at that time.
Yes.
And so I was just surprised when something outside or seemed to be outside event happened. And then I was kind of like thrown back into samsara and this feeling of karma happening. And then I was just trying to work it all out. But you just explained that very well. Thank you.
To say there is no free will, firstly, this term free will is a bit of a confusion because there are three things involved. There's will. Yes, we do have will. We have likes, dislikes, desires, and so on, the seeds of which are our vasanas.
Yeah.
Will is one thing. Freedom of will is another thing. Yes, we have a will, and our will is free because nobody makes us want what we don't want. No one can make us want what we don't want or stop us wanting what we do want. So our will is free.
Yeah.
And there's freedom of action. So these three distinct things are conflated together in this English term, free will. So it's a confusing term because it's not properly defined. We need to distinguish our will from our freedom of will from freedom of action. Freedom of action means we are free to act according to our will. So freedom of action implies freedom of will, because if we have no freedom of will, in effect, our actions are not free. So often when the terms Bhagavan used for freedom of action, he called it Kriya Swatantra, the freedom of action. Freedom of will, he called Ichcha Swatantra. But generally, he spoke about them together as Ichcha Kriya Swatantra, because the Kriya Swatantra implies Ichcha Swatantra. We do have that freedom because, as I say, the causation is from inside to outside.
Yeah.
Whose vasanas are they? Whose will is it? Whose desire is it? Who likes this? Who dislikes that? It is ego. No one can make us as ego like anything that we don't like or dislike anything that we do like. So it's all, the vasanas are entirely under our control. But the real freedom of will is, yes, we are free to want this or want that. We're also free to be swayed by this vasana or that vasana, because so many vasanas are arising at the same time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have contrary inclinations. We want we've just eaten a tasty meal. Because it's very tasty, we want to eat some more. But we know if we eat more, it's not going to be good for us. So we've got an inclination to eat more, and we've got an inclination to refrain from eating more. So like this, with so many, this is just an example, but with so many contrary inclinations we have. So we have the freedom at any moment to follow this inclination or that inclination.
Right.
But the crucial freedom is we have the freedom to be swayed by some Vishaya Vasana or other, or to be not to be swayed by any Vishaya Vasana by clinging to I am. That is the crucial freedom. It's that freedom.
Yeah.
Which is what the key to our true freedom, which is the freedom from ego. It's only by clinging to I am that we can achieve the perfect freedom, which is freedom from ego.
And if
so
we
long
want
as we rise as ego, we have freedom of will, and we generally misapply it. That's why we got ourselves in this mess.
And if all we want is freedom and liberation, then you're saying
we have to cling to that which is ever free. What is ever free is I am. Ego is bondage, because ego, when we rise as ego, we identify ourselves with a name and form. So we are bound. That's why Bhagavan says in verse 24 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, the body doesn't say I. That implies the body is not aware of itself as I, because it's jada. It's a jada body. It's not aware. So the body is not aware of itself as I. Satchit, the real awareness, the existence awareness, doesn't rise. But between these two, some spurious entity, he doesn't say spurious entity, he says, one thing I rises as the extent of a body. That one thing I, that is this ego. It's neither the body, because the body is not aware of itself as I, nor is it Satchit, because Satchit doesn't rise, but ego rises and subsides. So it's neither the body, nor is it Satchit, but it rises between these two. It claims the awareness of Satchit as its own awareness. And it claims the form of the body as its own form, and says, I am this body. In that mixed awareness, I am this body, I am is Satchit. That is the reality. This body is just a form. We've conflated these two together. This conflated awareness is what is called Chit Jadagranti. Chit Jadagranti means the knot that binds consciousness and what is not conscious. What is not conscious is the body. Satchit is what is conscious. So these two are bound together as if they're one. That is called Chit Jadagranti.
So we're basically all God, basically, ultimately, but we just kind of, it's, as you say, it's mixed up and we've forgotten. This is a process of remembering this.
What is real is only I am. But now we've mixed up I am with this person that we seem to be.
And how would you describe the state that I was experiencing a number of weeks ago then? I mean, it felt like it was the real thing, if you know what I mean. But is it like just a stage on the path or something?
It's a stage on the path. It's a stage on the path, because even when you were experiencing that, who was experiencing it? You'll say, I, Sarah, was experiencing it. That I, Sarah, it's not Sarah wasn't actually experiencing it. It was the I that takes itself to be Sarah. That is ego.
Yeah, but at the time, I mean, I'm saying that now because I have to refer to myself, but at the time it felt like I wasn't there and it was just God and I was seeing God in everything.
But you still say I was seeing God. It was still an experience. So long as there's an experience, there must be an experiencer.
Okay,
That experiencer is ego.
So eventually that feeling will go completely, that there will be no Sarah anymore. Yeah.
There not only no Sarah, Sarah's going to go away anyway when the body dies. Sarah goes away every day when you fall asleep. Sarah is not the problem. Sarah is innocent. Sarah hasn't done anything. The problem is the I that says I am Sarah.
Right.
That I has to go. When that I goes, Sarah and everything else will go with it, because Sarah exists only in the view of that I.
Right. Yeah.
So that I is that spurious awareness that arises between body and Satchit and conflates the two, takes them both to be itself. I am this body.
I get it. Yeah.
I am doesn't belong to ego; it belongs to Satchit. But the body doesn't belong to ego. The body belongs to body. But the ego takes the two, claims the two as itself. That is Chitta Granthi. He also says it is bandham, it is bondage. Why is it bondage? Because as soon as we rise as ego and identify ourselves with the body, we've limited ourselves in so many ways.
Yeah.
So we are, so long as we rise as ego, we are in bondage. In order to be free of this bondage, we need to remain just as I am, because I am is ever free. Because I am never rises or subsides, it just is as it is.
But there will be very few people that will reach that state in this lifetime.
No person will ever reach that state. Because the person is just what we identify with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Even ego will not reach that state, because when ego reaches that state, it ceases to be ego. That is...
This is like a goal, isn't it? I mean, all the people that are on this call are wanting this as a goal.
It is a goal, but the goal is not something other than ourselves. The goal is ourselves. So our aim, now we are aware of ourselves as I am Sarah or I am Michael or whatever. That which is aware of itself as I am Sarah, that I is not Sarah, because Sarah is something that comes and goes. So you're not Sarah. Sarah is not what you actually are.
Yeah.
Nor are you that I which says I am Sarah, because that I comes and goes. Where is that I in sleep?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
But what remains in sleep is the reality of that ego, which is the pure awareness I am. So what we are trying to do when we're following this path, we are trying to turn our attention away from all objects, back to face ourselves, the subject.
Right.
When we manage to turn our attention 180 degrees, we cease to be subject, because the subject is ego. Ego is that which is, we are ego only so long as we're identified with an object. So when we turn our attention 180 degrees, we thereby cease to be aware of any object at all. We are aware of ourselves then as pure awareness, which is what we actually are.
Yeah.
So ego needs to experience itself as pure awareness. But as soon as ego experiences itself as pure awareness, it ceases to be ego. Because ego is not pure awareness. Ego is the pure awareness mixed with adjuncts.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Yeah, it feels, sometimes I get a feeling of being scared of that feeling of disappearing.
Ego is afraid of that because we're not ready to let go, because we've got so much desire and attachment for things. That is the whole problem. That is the whole problem.
Yeah. Wow, incredible.
Fear arises only when there's desire. If you had no desire, you wouldn't fear anything. So
if there was no desire, okay.
Suppose you had no desire, no likes or dislikes. Nothing would perturb you. You wouldn't be afraid of anything. We're afraid of those things we dislike, those things that we're averse to, those things that we think will be detrimental to us. Those are the things we're afraid of. If we have absolutely no likes or dislikes, there will be no fear. That is, the vasanas give rise to likes and dislikes. The likes and dislikes gives rise to the desire and aversion, which in turn gives rise to fear and all the other things. Everything follows from that.
Yeah, it's funny to fear something that's so sort of harmless and just
we
so
fear
natural.
it because we can experience ourselves as we actually are only when ego is annihilated. In other words, only when we surrender ourselves completely.
Yeah.
Because we still have attachment to things other than ourselves, we fear to lose those. So we don't want to we're not yet ready to surrender ourselves. That's the whole problem.
Yeah. So once we're ready, then if we sort of mentally say to ourselves,
easier than surrender.
Yeah.
Though we are said to be bound, who is binding us? It's not the world that is binding us. That is, supposing you, Bhagavan says, complaining about bondage is like standing under a tree and holding a branch and saying, oh, I'm bound to this branch. The branch is not holding you. You are holding the branch. No, but how can I'm holding on to this branch for dear life. I can't let go of this branch. Bhagavan says, why can't you let go? You're standing on solid ground. You are not this ego which is clinging to a branch. You are that which is the ground on which you're standing. That is the I am. So
Okay.
we need to be. So all we need to do is to let go. The whole problem is we're not yet willing to let go.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Thank you.
So
Thank you so
how
much.
to let go? By clinging only to I am.
Yeah.
By clinging to I am, we're thereby letting go of everything else.
Can I just tell you a funny thing that happened to me a few years ago?
Yes.
I moved into a house, and I met Muji, and I had some sort of spiritual experiences with him, and I became very lost again, and I was very sort of caught up in vasanas, and then I went out to do some gardening in my garden, and I opened the wheelie bin to put the weeds in the bin. And then as I flipped the lid open, I saw written on the brick wall of my garden was the words, I am. Somehow it's been like scribed into the wall, into the bricks of my own house, the words I am. And I don't know how it got there, but it all seems to, I don't know. I mean, do these things happen? These kind of miracles happen? It seems very strange. I didn't know about I am then.
Whatever happens, it's all happening. As I said, it's all whatever we are to experience in this life, it is destined. It is happening by Bhagavan's grace.
Right.
So it's that maybe Bhagavan telling you, stop seeing outside, see within.
Yes, and it was funny how it was a kind of metaphor for the pulling the weeds out and putting them in the bin. It was very funny at the time. And I suddenly felt very
vasanas. We need to root them out, and how to root them out only by clinging to I am.
Yeah, now it totally completely makes sense. I didn't really understand it at the time, but I only came across Bhagavan like just 2 months ago, I guess. Yeah. So it's been a long process, but yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much.
And the nature of this path, this is the path of jnana, the path of knowledge. Things become clearer and clearer as we progress on this path.
Yeah.
And finally, the goal of this path is to lose ourselves in absolute clarity of pure awareness.
Yes.
That alone is the state of perfect clarity.
Yeah, I feel it's coming for me in this lifetime, so I'm just trying to prepare myself.
Whatever clarity we experience, from where does that clarity come? It comes only from within ourselves, because we are the original light. I am is the original light, the light that illumines the mind, which in turn illumines the world.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful. Okay, it's kind of blown my mind a bit. Thank you.
That's the whole idea. We're here to blow our mind, blow it to smithereens.
Yes.
And the only bomb that can blow this mind to smithereens is the bomb of I am. Cling to I am, and the mind will be blown to smithereens.
Thank you. I will. Thank you so much.
A few weeks or months after the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Bhagavan said, when the atom bomb of jnana falls, it will destroy all the universes which are built on the flimsy foundation of ego.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's incredible.
So Bhagavan's analogies were always very topical.
Yeah, maybe it's something to do with this pandemic as well. Maybe that's somehow yes, a part of it as well. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Lorraine, you had a question?
Hello. Yes. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
We need to be as we are. How does this relate to our dharma?
Being as we are is what is called swadharma. That is, swadharma means doing one's own dharma. Swa means oneself or own. Bhagavan interpreted swadharma. What is the true swadharma? That is generally in the how people generally understand swadharma. It's according to your caste or according to your profession or according to your religion or whatever. Everyone has their own dharma. But Bhagavan says the real meaning of Swadharma is being as you are. That doesn't mean being Lorraine. Lorraine is not what you are. What you actually are is only I am. So being just I am, remaining as that pure awareness I am, that is your Swadharma.
Right. But I remember you saying when thieves came to Bhagavan and stole some things, said, well, we won't do anything because this is our Dharma and that's their Dharma.
Yes. That is, the same terms are used in different contexts. That is what happened then. The thieves broke into the ashram, thinking that so many people were coming there, they must have lots of money there. So they came hoping to get some money. This was in the very early days, in the 1920s, soon after the ashram had started at the foot of the hill after Bhagavan's mother passed away. So it wasn't actually a rich institution. It was just Bhagavan and a few sadhus, and visitors used to come and go. So there wasn't pots of money or anything there. And Bhagavan was just living in the old hall. The thieves broke in and they started demanding money. Bhagavan said, we are just beggars here, so you take whatever you want. And the thieves were disappointed because they couldn't find any money, which they were hoping for. So they told everyone to go out. That in those days, Bhagavan used to sleep in the hall, and devotees also used to sleep there also. So they said, okay, you all go out. And as they were going out, they were beating them with sticks. So Bhagavan also was beaten on the thighs by these thieves. So some of the other devotees got very angry and wanted to fight back. Bhagavan said, they are doing their dharma, we should stick to our dharma. They are thieves, so they're doing what thieves should be doing. Let them do their dharma. We should stick to our dharma. We are sadhus. We shouldn't react, was the implication there. But if we take it in a deeper sense, we're relating it to your question, what is the dharma of a sadhu? Just being as we are. So if we remain as we are, we won't respond, we won't react to the world. Let anything happen. It's all according to destiny.
So we all have different dharmas.
According to Bhagavan, we all have one dharma. Our dharma is just to be as we are. Lorraine has a different dharma to Michael. But I am has only one dharma, that is to be as we are. So if you were Lorraine, and if I were Michael, we would have different dharmas. But you are not a Lorraine, and I am not Michael. We are, I am I, you are I. There's only one I, we are that. So your true dharma is just to be as I am.
Which is our divine self.
Yes, that is, well, yes, we can call it our divine self. It is what you actually are.
Yeah. So I've been reading the Bhagavad Gita recently, and when Krishna tells Arjuna to fight his relatives and his everybody, and Arjuna says, no, I'm not going to do that. I feel so sad. I can't fight my relatives. But Krishna says, no, you've got to fight because it's your dharmic duty.
Yes. That is, as a person, Arjuna was born as in a royal family. He's a prince. So he has to, princes have certain dharma. They have to uphold justice and righteousness and to oppose evil. And sometimes they have to fight. When evil is getting the upper hand, they have to fight back. That is the dharma of a prince. So as a prince, he has to fight. But Bhagavad Gita has a much deeper meaning than that. That is, Bhagavad Gita gives many teachings at many different levels. So that is why there's so many different interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita, because it is a text that is designed to be applicable to people at different stages of development. And so as a prince, he has a dharma to fight. As what he really is just I am. As I am, he has a dharma just to be as I am.
Right.
So
it explains that.
Yeah.
But still has to fight.
If Arjuna thinks I have to fight, he's not understood. The inner message that Krishna said is, you are not this, you are not Arjuna. That is, Krishna is pointing to that reality within Arjuna, that I am. That is what we actually are, only that I am. So long as we think I am Lorraine, or I am Michael, or I am Arjuna, we have a certain, as a person, we have a certain dharma. But that is not our real dharma. The real dharma, let that person do its dharma. Let us do our dharma. So let Lorraine do Lorraine's dharma. You should do your dharma. You are not Lorraine, you are only that which is shiny in Lorraine as I am. But dharma of I am is just to be as I am. So be as I am, and let Lorraine do her own dharma.
Which is
that's no concern of yours.
Yeah, which is my destiny.
Yeah, you'll be made to do it anyway. So don't worry about Lorraine and her dharma. It's no concern of yours, because you're not Lorraine.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
There are questions from people, because it's getting a bit later, Michael. There are a couple of questions from people who've already asked questions. I'm thinking of 2 questions from people who haven't asked, which might be better. And then if we have time, actually the 3 questions. So I think that might be more appropriate.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. One is that I've heard some say that upon liberation, this is not the end of one's spiritual journey. In fact, this is when the true spiritual journey begins. Is this true?
The term moksha or mukti, liberation, is common to all the different schools of Indian philosophy, all the different religious beliefs. The only Indian philosophers who didn't believe in mukti or moksha were the Charvakas, the materialists. All the others, the Buddhists, the Jains, the various different schools of Hindu philosophy, the Nyayakas, the logicians, the Vaiseshikas, the Sankhyas, the Yogis, the Purva Mimamsa and the Uttar Mimamsa, all had some idea of moksha. But because their philosophies were very different, their ideas of moksha were very different. According to Bhagavan, what is liberation? In verse 40, the final verse of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, Bhagavan says, that is, there are, as I say, there are a wide, diverse range of beliefs about what is moksha. So some people believe, but moksha, you retain a form. You retain your individuality, you continue to be a form. Some people believe that you are free either to be a form or to not be a form. So there's liberation with form, liberation with or without form. That is, you've got the freedom either to be formless or to have form, or formless liberation, liberation without form. So Bhagavan says, if it is said that the liberation that one may attain is of 3 kinds: liberation with form, liberation with or without form, or liberation with form, liberation without form, or liberation with or without form, I will say destruction of the ego form that distinguishes these different types of liberation alone is real liberation. So liberation, according to Bhagavan, is nothing but destruction of ego. All spiritual journeys, the spiritual journey is only for ego. When ego is destroyed, what remains is what always is, which is Satchidananda. Satchidananda was never on a spiritual journey because it is just as it is. It never undergoes any change of any kind whatsoever. So those who say that liberation is just the beginning of your spiritual journey, there's still a journey after that, their idea of liberation is something other than annihilation of ego. So until ego is annihilated, yes, spiritual journey must go on. So it's like just for example, to illustrate what Bhagavan means when he's talking about this liberation with form, without form, with or without form, some of the dualistic bhaktas, they think that liberation, the highest state to be in, is to be in heaven with Krishna or Vishnu or Shiva or something. So they think being in that world with Shiva, so they retain their individuality, Shiva retains his individuality. They're two separate individuals. They are blessed because they're in the presence of God. And they think that is the highest state. It is possible to attain such state. It is possible to go to heaven, and beyond heaven are these worlds the worlds of Vaikuntha and Kailasa. They are beyond. Heaven is just a world of pleasure. But beyond that is Vaikuntha, the world of Vishnu, or Kailasa, the world of Shiva. There you're actually with God in name and form. So you retain your form and God retains his form. So that is liberation with form. These are all intermediate stages. You may actually experience that. If you're a great devotee of Krishna or Vishnu or of Shiva or of any god, you may actually experience a state in which you're in the world living with your God. That may actually be the state, but that is only a stage along the journey. That is not the final. The final liberation is only annihilation of ego. When ego is annihilated, who remains to make to travel anywhere, to journey anywhere? There's nobody remaining. When ego is annihilated, what remains is only what always is. That is pure awareness, otherwise called Satchidananda. And that never, as I said, it never goes anywhere. It has no goal to seek, and it just remains as it is. So, for those who say that liberation, even after liberation, you still have to continue your spiritual journey, it's true from their perspective, their idea of liberation, but it is not what Bhagavan meant by liberation.
Should we move on to the next question?
Yes.
It says, I'm a little confused about people asking about past lives and next lives. David Godman said that Ramana's higher teaching was to teach that there is no birth or death within the self, and therefore no reincarnation. Could Michael clarify this? I also can't conceptualize how the I can be reborn if it is not real. Here is the quote by Bhagavan. So the quote is, reincarnation exists only so long as there is ignorance. There is really no reincarnation at all, either now or before, nor will there be any hereafter. This is the truth.
Okay, we shouldn't confuse different levels of truth. The ultimate truth is ajata. We were never born and we never died because we never rose as ego. That is the ultimate truth. So long as we rise as ego, birth and death are real. Because when we rise as ego, we identify ourselves with a body. Whatever body we identify with, it was born and it will die. So long as, but the death of body is not the death of ego. Ego, that is, you say when ego is unreal, how it can be reborn. When ego is unreal, how was it born now? Ultimately, ego is unreal. That is, ego doesn't actually exist, but ego seems to exist in its own view. And so long as we rise as ego, we project and identify a body as I. According to Bhagavan, there are numerous births. Bhagavan says, for example, in the first verse of Ēkāṉma Pañcakam. This is one of the final works that Bhagavan, in fact, I think it's the final work Bhagavan composed. What he says in the first verse is, Tanne marandu, forgetting oneself. Tanu veitana eni, thinking a body alone to be oneself. Enil piravi editu, taking innumerable births, urudi, finally, tanne onandu, knowing oneself, tanne ār, knowing and being oneself, knowing oneself and being oneself, Uḷḷadu Sanchara Kanavin Viritale Khan is just like waking up from a dream of wandering all over the world. So here Bhagavan affirms, so long as we forget what we actually are, so long as we're not aware of ourselves as we actually are, we will mistake a body to be ourselves. And so long as we mistake a body to be ourselves, we are born, and therefore we will die. And when the body dies, it's not the death of who is it who takes the body to be I? It is ego. So long as the ego survives, it will take one body after another. But Bhagavan also said, all these lives, all these births and deaths, they're all nothing but a dream. The dreamer is ego. So long as the dreamer survives, the dreams will continue one after another, after another, after another. The whole of the Bhagavan also taught the law of karma. The law of karma, Bhagavan clarified, the actions you do in this lifetime, you cannot experience the fruits of actions you do in this lifetime. The fruits of actions you do in this lifetime get stored in Sanchita. And from Sanchita, they're selected as prarabdha for a future life. So what you're experiencing in this life is the fruits of actions that you've done in previous lives. So how can we say Bhagavan said there's no such thing as rebirth? The ultimate truth is that there's no ego, and therefore there's no birth. So, but now there seems to be ego. Now we're aware of ourselves as I am Michael or I am whoever. So long as we're aware of ourselves as a person, who is this I who is aware of itself as this person? It's not ourself as we actually are. The pure I is never aware of ourselves as I am this or that. It is the adjunct mixed I, the same I. There's only one I, but that I, when mixed with adjunct, that is ego. It is ego that takes birth. And so long as ego survives, it will continue taking one birth after another. In other words, it will continue dreaming one dream after another. So we need to understand Bhagavan's teachings. We need to have a coherent view of Bhagavan's teachings. We shouldn't just take one teaching here and misapply it. Yes, Bhagavan did say the ultimate truth is ajata. Ajata means not born. That means not that ego has never come into existence. There's no ego, no world, nothing. But so long as we experience a world, who is experiencing it? It is only ego. Ego is not real. If we investigate ego, we'll find there's no such thing. And since there's no ego, there's no world, there's nothing. There's only what is. But so long as we attend to anything other than ourselves, what is aware of anything other than ourselves is only ego. And so long as there's ego, that ego is experiences itself as I am this body. And when this body dies, that's the ending of one dream. It will dream another dream in which it will experience itself as I am this body. So we need to understand these things in context. Is that clear?
So this question is that, could you please ask Michael how to repeat how to practice self-attentiveness? And the next part of the question is, there are so many points of view in this world. How can I be sure that what Bhagavan has taught is the truth?
Okay, I'll deal with the second part first, because that's a basis on which Bhagavan taught the practice of self-attentiveness. That is, Bhagavan analyzed or pointed out to us an analysis of our experience of ourselves. Yes, there are so many views, but we need to analyze our experience very deeply to understand. That is, we need to critically analyze our own experience to understand the logical basis for what Bhagavan has taught us. Now, we are aware of ourselves. And we are aware of other things. All other things appear only in the view of ourselves as this person that we seem to be. Now we are aware of ourselves as if we were a person. This person is a bundle of 5 sheaves: body, life, mind, intellect, and will. This bundle of 5 sheaves is the person we take ourselves to be. Is this person what we actually are? when we consider it, it's this body, we experience ourselves as this body. If this body were actually ourselves, we could never be aware of ourselves without being aware of this body. Because if body equals ourself, being aware of ourselves means being aware of the body. If we're not aware of the body, then we're not aware of ourselves. But the fact is, we all know in dream, for example, we are aware of ourselves, but we're not at all aware of this body. Instead of being aware of this body, we're aware of some other body as ourselves. Since we are aware of ourselves in dream without being aware of this body cannot be what we actually are. And that dream body cannot be what we actually are, because now we're aware of ourselves without being aware of that dream body. So we are not this body. So what about the mind? Are we then the mind? Now, in waking and dream, we're aware of ourselves as all these five sheaths: body, life, mind, intellect, and will. But in sleep, we are not aware of any of these things, but we are aware of ourselves. This is something that many people have difficulty grasping at first, because they say, oh no, in sleep I wasn't aware of anything. Yes, it's true, we were not aware of anything. But now we are aware of having been in a state in which we were not aware of anything. That means in sleep we were aware, we just weren't aware of anything. So sleep is the state in which there is only awareness. That is what we are aware. There's no object of awareness. We're not aware of anything. We are just aware of our own existence. Our own existence doesn't mean an object. We are just aware, I am. That's all that remains in sleep. So since we are aware of ourselves, of our existence in sleep, without being aware of anything else, nothing other than ourselves can be ourselves. So we cannot be this body or this mind or anything else. All the other things we're aware of, the world, we are aware of them only when we're aware of ourselves as I am this body, I am this person. So our knowledge of all other things depends upon our knowledge of ourselves as I am this person. When this knowledge of I am this person, I am Michael or whoever, is a false awareness of ourselves. Because Michael is not what I actually am. Because in sleep, I'm aware of myself without being aware of Michael. So how can Michael be what I actually am? So by critically analyzing our experience, we understand that everything depends for a semi-existence upon the semi-existence of ourself as a person. That mixed awareness, I am this person, I am this body, is what is called ego. Ego appears in waking and dream, it disappears in sleep. But though ego is absent in sleep, I continue to be there because I'm very well aware when I wake up, oh, I slept. So I still existed and was aware of my existence, even in the absence of ego. So ego is not what I actually am. Ego is a false awareness of myself. And everything else I'm aware of is dependent upon this false awareness of myself as ego. Therefore, what is real is only I am, not anything else. This is the core philosophy of Bhagavan. Why he teaches us this philosophy? Because when we understand this, we will know that what we are to investigate, what we need to know is we don't want to know anything that isn't real. We want to know what is real. So we need to investigate ourselves. So other philosophies, other beliefs, that is religious people, scientists, philosophers, they may have raised so many objections to this very simple philosophy of Bhagavan. But if we think deeply about it, Bhagavan's philosophy, you cannot attack it. That is, all other philosophies believe that the world exists independent of us. The world exists out there. But how can you know that anything exists independent? If you don't know it, how do you know it exists? Everyone believes the world exists even when I'm asleep. But according to Bhagavan, no, the world doesn't exist when you're asleep. The world exists only in your view. When you don't see it, it doesn't exist. Do you believe, so long as you were dreaming, the dream world seemed to be perfectly real? And if someone had asked you in a dream, what will happen to this world when you fall asleep? You'll say, what a question is that? Of course, the world will continue even when I'm asleep. But when you wake up, you know that that world that seemed so real and seemed to be so independent of you was actually existed only in your own mind. According to Bhagavan, the present world is only in our own mind. Can you find any evidence that this world is anything other than a dream? Obviously not, because there's nothing that we experience in this state, or that we ever could experience in this state, that we could not experience in a dream. So we have no evidence that this is anything but a dream. So to view everything as a dream is perfectly reasonable. And why should we? That is the simplest explanation of all we experience is that this is a dream. To say that this is not a dream, but it exists independent of my perception of it, you are there by asking us, you're there by believing in something for which you have no evidence. If you cease to believe in anything for which you have no evidence, the simplest explanation is that this is all a dream. It doesn't exist except independent of my perception of it. So Bhagavan's philosophy, others may try to attack it, but it's actually it's such a simple philosophy and such a basic philosophy that it cannot be, nobody can repudiate what Bhagavan has said. They may disagree with it, they may be unwilling to accept it, but they cannot prove it to be wrong. Their position, that Bhagavan's philosophy is wrong, they cannot prove their position. They cannot prove us wrong, and they cannot prove themselves right. So they're all on very shaky ground. Whereas Bhagavan says, well, the one thing that you know for certain, the one thing that is definitely true is I am. Everything else may well be just a dream, may well be just an appearance. So what is definitely real is I am. Therefore, before we can know the truth of other things, we first need to know the truth of ourselves. Who knows all other things? I do. So in order to know the truth of everything I know, I first need to know the truth of I. So Bhagavan's philosophy is such a robust and such a sound philosophy, and such a simple, beautifully simple philosophy. Very, very simple. Even a child can understand it. So that is why it's reasonable for us to accept Bhagavan's philosophy. Maybe there are so many other views. Yes, if you want to believe anything else, you can believe whatever you want to believe. Everyone believes what they want to believe, but this is the simplest. And if we are seeking to know what is real, we shouldn't believe in anything whose reality is doubtful. The only thing whose reality we cannot doubt is I am. So we need to know what we are. We need to investigate this I am to find out its reality. When we know the reality of I am, we will know the reality of everything else. So your other question is how to be self-attentive. I don't know whether you're watching this on a PC or a mobile, but let's say you're watching it on a mobile. If I ask you how to look at let's say you're looking at it on PC. If I ask you how to look at the PC, can you answer that question? Just look at it. It's there. It's there in front of you. Look at it. Asking how to look at the PC or how to see the PC is like asking how to see myself. How to see yourself? Look at yourself. You just have to turn your attention. Now your attention is turned outwards. You're now attending to things other than yourself. You're attending to the PC that's in front of you. You're attending to a voice of some person called Michael who's talking. Your thoughts are going through your mind. You're trying to understand what Michael is saying. You're interpreting what he's saying. So you're aware of thoughts. You're aware of so many things. All those things you're aware of, all those things you're attending to are other than yourself. But to whom do all these things appear? Only to you. Who is aware of these things? Only you. So turn your attention away from everything that is known, back to the knower. Away from everything that is seen, back to the seer. People used to ask Bhagavan, how to do this? Bhagavan said, if the way were objective, it could be shown objectively. This is not an objective path. This is a matter of turning our attention back to the subject, away from all objects, back to the subject. It cannot and need not be shown by anyone else. You need to be shown the way inside your own home, the way inside your own heart. You need to just look within. You need to turn your attention away from everything else, back towards yourself. When we first hear this, it may not be entirely clear to us. That's the words that we understand the words, we understand what they're pointing out. But what is myself? What is this myself I have to attend to? You are not an object. You are the awareness in which all objects appear. So we have to think deeply about the clues that Bhagavan has given us. All that Bhagavan has taught us, they're all pointers. If we think deeply about it, and then we have to try to practice, to put it into practice. So Bhagavan has said we should attend only to ourselves. So how to attend only to myself? Try it and see. If you want to learn to ride a bicycle, you can ask people. They can say, yes, you have to sit on a bicycle, you have to balance, you shouldn't fall this way or that way, you've got to balance. More than that, what can they say? There's only one way to learn to ride a bicycle. You have to get on a bicycle, and first time you get on, you'll wobble and fall off. And then you'll try again and you'll wobble and fall off. Slowly, you'll get the hang of it and you'll become more steady. And after a few weeks of practicing, it'll be second nature to you. You'll wonder, how could I ever not have been able to ride a bicycle? It's so easy. Likewise with self-attentiveness. Bhagavan has given us all the pointers. Follow the clues he's given us. Whatever you may be aware of, who is aware of it? To whom does it appear? And try to be aware of that I which is aware of all these things. So if you try to apply Bhagavan's, to put Bhagavan's pointers into practice, in other words, if you try to attend to yourself, it will slowly become more and more clear. But a very important thing to remember, you yourself are not an object. It's not a matter of attending to any object. It's not a matter of attending to something. It's a matter of attending to yourself, that awareness in which everything else appears. Are you not aware I am? Yes, I'm aware I am. That's all you need to attend to. Not the words I am, but what do those words I am refer to? They refer just to your existence, to your awareness. That's all you need to attend to. Attend to your own existence. For people who had difficulty grasping this, Bhagavan used to say, just go on repeating I, but don't just repeat the word I. Just when you say the word I mentally, what is it that is done? What is it that this word I is referring to? You can say I or I am or whatever in any language. It doesn't matter what any language you're familiar with. And whether you say I or I am, it doesn't matter because they're both referring to the same thing. Just repeat the word I or I am to yourself slowly and contemplatively, and try to see what is this word referring to. Superficially, we refer to this body as I, but obviously it's not the body, because the body is an object. The mind is an object. Everything other than ourselves is an object. But this I is referring to something inside me. What is that? It's not a thing. It's not. When we say something, it's not an object. But there is something that we are referring to when we say I. What is that thing? Try to see that. I hope that adequately answers that question.
This is further question, and then if we do it quickly, maybe David can ask his question. But we're sort of close to pretty much near the end. It says, so the question.
I promise I'll answer your question, David, however long it takes.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
What do we do if we feel kind of stark about this? Like kind of alone, bare, empty, and just that it doesn't feel comforting or loving, even if we know intellectually that it is. How do we overcome this? It feels almost as if, what is the purpose of this life? Like I'm just supposed to live this bare, uninteresting, and boring, kind of empty and stark, dry life, trying to attend to myself. Sorry, I don't mean any disrespect. I'm just trying to express a barrier I have to self-investigation. Thank you.
Okay. Who is it who feels this to be stark, to be bare, to be devoid of love? It is someone whose very nature is love. That is, what we actually are is love. That is, now we experience likes, dislikes, desires, and so on. But who is it who experiences all these? It is us. So we are the source of all likes and dislikes and so on. They all arise from the love that we actually are, because our very nature is infinite love for ourselves as we actually are. But now we've limited ourselves. Because we've limited ourselves, we are dissatisfied. We can't experience the infinite happiness that we actually are, so long as we have limited ourselves within the confines, within the that is, this body we experience as ourselves. It's confined within time and space. It was born at such and such time, it's going to die at such and such a time. So it's limited in time. It's limited in space. It's here, it's not there. So we have imposed so many limitations on ourselves. Our real nature is infinite happiness. Because of the limitations we've imposed upon ourselves, we are dissatisfied. The very nature of ego is to be dissatisfied. Nothing can satisfy us except the infinite happiness that we actually are. We are not only infinite happiness, we are also infinite love. And since we are infinite, our love is all-embracing. That is, we love ourselves as we actually are, because what we actually are is the infinite whole. But so long as we've limited ourselves within this body, we see things other than ourselves. So the infinite love that we are is now reflected through this little mind in the form of likes and dislikes. Some things I experience seem to make me happy. Some things seem to make me unhappy. So I like the things that make me happy, and I dislike the things that make me unhappy. So likes and dislikes arise, and that gives rise to desires and aversions. Oh, I like this, therefore I want more, I want more, I want more. And I don't like that, therefore I want to avoid it, and I want to avoid it. So the likes and dislikes give rise to desires and aversions, and in turn to hopes and fears and everything. All these are arising from within ourselves. The source from which they are arising is ourself, who are the infinite ocean of love and infinite ocean of happiness. Because we are so accustomed to seeking happiness outside ourselves, when we are told there's no happiness outside ourselves, but happiness lies only within, and we're not used to looking within, oh, this looks very stark. Previously, I was enjoying so many wonderful things in this world, so many tasty foods and beautiful sights and this pleasure and that pleasure, and my mind was going here and there. We were never satisfied, but we seem to be getting an iota of happiness here and there. It's all, that is, as our desires were satisfied, we seem to be happy. And then again, another desire would come on, and again we'd be unhappy. Now we are told to stop looking outside, to look within. It may look very stark at first, but look within. Look within with ever greater passion. The more the love with which you look within, the more love you will find within yourself. Because what is shining in your heart as I am, that is God, that is Guru, that is Bhagavan, who is the infinite ocean of love, who has infinite love for you as you actually are, because he is what you actually are. So if you begin to follow this path, with true love, with sincerity, you will begin to taste that love which is within you, that love which you actually are. And the more you taste that love, the more you will be attracted to it, and the more you'll want to do it. So this isn't anything, isn't actually a stark path. People think, oh, the path of Jnana, it's very dry and very stark. This is the pinnacle of the path of bhakti. This is the ultimate path of bhakti. Turning within to know God as he actually is. Because what is God is nothing but that which is shining in our heart as I. So this is the path of love. This is the path of happiness. So it's anything but stark. Give it a try. Try to turn within, and you will find the more you turn within, the more of a taste to turn within will increase. The more the love to turn within will increase, and the more insipid this world will seem. Whatever pleasures we experience in the world, they are nothing compared to the infinite ocean of happiness that is within us. I hope this adequately answers that question.
Before we go to David, actually, there is a short question which has been partly answered already, which is self-attention our ego giving attention to our ego? If yes, how do we get to the self?
Yes. The one who is attending is ego. Yes, ego is attending to itself, but ego is like the snake, the illusory snake. When you're looking at the snake, what are you actually looking at? You seem to be looking, it seems to be a snake. So it seems to you that you're looking at a snake. But what are you actually looking at? If you look at it closely enough, you'll find, oh, I wasn't looking at a snake at all. I was only looking at a rope. What I was looking at is only a rope. Likewise, when ego looks at itself, when ego looks at ego, it will see it is not ego, it is only pure awareness. That pure awareness is what you call the self. That is our real nature. That is what we actually are. So the only way to know what we actually are is to look at ourselves. Now, ourself seems to be ego, but if we look at ego cleanly enough, we'll see, oh, it's only just pure awareness, an infinite ocean of pure awareness. So looking at ego is itself looking at our real nature and looking at the self. Because there's only one eye, they're not two eyes. That one eye in its pure condition is called Atma-vichara, or our real nature, or the self, or whatever. When it's mixed with adjuncts, as I am this person, I am Michael, or I am whoever, that is ego. When ego is investigating itself, it is not investigating the Michael portion. I'm not trying to find out who Michael is. I've already understood Michael is, now I mistake myself to be Michael, but I've understood Michael is not what I actually am. So what I actually am is only that I am portion in that mixed awareness. I am this Michael. So I'm trying to ignore Michael and attend only to I am. So ego is trying to attend to its own reality, which is I am. Where will it find that reality? Only within itself. So it has to look within. It has to look back at itself. When it looks at itself keenly enough, it will see, oh, I'm just pure awareness. I hope that adequately answers that question.
I think we can move to David now.
Well, Michael, you really have, this is a real 4 hours. I think you've done a fantastic amount, but I'll be very quick. And the thing that got me confused was, it's in relation to the inquiry, the nature of the inquiry. Thoughts come. To whom do they arise? To me. And then you said, I am. And I've always sort of thought it was, who am I? Could you?
That is, Bhagavan gave pointers in the form of questions. Right. But it's not the questions that's important. That is, who am I? The question, who am I, is pointing at what? It's pointing only at I, I am.
Yeah.
That is what we are to. That is, we are to investigate who we are or what we are. Yes. That doesn't mean we ask the question, who am I or what am I? If you want to investigate something, if I give you a book and say, what is written in this book? You don't sit there and ask, what is written in this book? What is written in this book? What do? You open the book and look inside.
Yes.
When Bhagavan says, investigate who am I, he doesn't mean that you go on repeating who am I. He doesn't even say, ask who am I. He says, investigate who am I. That means you have to look at yourself. Look at I am. So when Bhagavan said, that is why Bhagavan gave these, that is what Bhagavan said in the form of questions. It's actually pointers. He didn't say ask to whom it has appeared. He said investigate whom it has appeared. If you investigate to whom it has appeared, it will be clear to me.
Right.
So investigating to whom it's appeared means turning our attention back to ourselves.
Right.
And when it's clear to me, then who is this I? It's not asking the question, who am I? You're holding on to I am in order to see what it actually is.
Right.
So
I will reflect on that, Michael.
Yeah, that is why I often say that is the term that Bhagavan used in Sanskrit, Atma-vichara, and the equivalent term in Tamil, tannatam, is generally translated as self-inquiry. But there's a problem with the word inquiry, because inquiry is used in two senses in English. We use inquiry to mean asking questions.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to meet my friend? Okay, inquire about his welfare for me. There inquire means ask a question. You could also we also talk about inquiring into. Inquiring into means investigating. It's in the sense of investigating that Bhagavan used the Sanskrit word vichara and the Tamil word natam. Vichara can also be used in the sense of inquiring, in the sense of asking a question, but that's not the sense in which Bhagavan used it. And the Tamil term natam is very clearly investigation rather than inquiry. It means looking within and trying to see what natam means looking or attending. So when he used the term tannatam, it very clearly, and he also used the term tat governam. Tat governam means attention. So what Bhagavan means by Atma-vichara is investigating ourselves. And how do we investigate ourselves? Only by attending to ourselves. It's only by looking at ourselves. Just like if I give you a book and ask you to investigate what's written in it, you have to open it and see what's written in it. You have to look at it.
It's becoming clearer.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it is. And I thank you for that.
And the more we look within, the clearer it will become.
Right. Right. Thank you.
Unfortunately, the translations often obscure the simplicity and clarity of what Bhagavan is saying.
Right.
But because this term vichara is often translated as inquire, and some people have even gone so far as to translate it as ask. People think, oh, Bhagavan asked us to ask, who am I? So who am I? Okay, nothing happened. Okay, who am I? We're waiting, we're asking the question, expecting something to happen. Nothing is to happen. We are to investigate what we are, and what the crucial thing is what we are. It's our being that we are investigating. So we're not waiting for something to happen, for suddenly something to rise up and say, oh, this is me. We are looking within to see what we actually are. We're investigating our being. And the more we attend, our being is also our awareness. So the more we attend to our being, the more clarity. That clarity, that increased clarity of self-awareness that we experience when we investigate ourselves is what Bhagavan referred to as aham spurana, or in Tamil, aham spuripu. Spurana or spuripu simply means shining or making itself known. So that clarity of self, that fresh clarity of self-awareness that we experience when we turn our attention back towards ourselves, that is what is called aham spurana. And that will shine more and more, it shines clearly to the extent to which we attend to ourselves. Right. And eventually we will be swallowed by that. Bhagavan used the analogy for spurana, he used the analogy of a flame that catches a piece of camphor. That flame will continue burning until the camphor is burnt entirely. So if we catch hold of that spurana, that clarity of self-awareness, and hold on to that we will eventually be consumed by that. And then what will remain is the infinite clarity of pure awareness that we actually are.
Well, thank you. I must say that's extremely helpful. It really is extremely helpful. Thank you very much.
Well,
Yes, you've just gone past the 4 hours, but well done anyway.
Yeah. Well, this is all. I mean, Bhagavan has taught us this. It's all very. If we understand Bhagavan clearly, this is what he's teaching us. This is what he's pointing at.
Yes.
But the trouble is that sometimes the translations are not so perfect, and sometimes we need to understand what Bhagavan's words. They're all pointers. No, that is the truth we are seeking is beyond mind and therefore beyond words.
Yeah.
But though it's beyond mind and words, it's always shining clearly in us at that fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. So we need to hold on to that. The more we hold on to that, the clearer it will all become.
Okay, thank you.
And Bhagavan's words, the deeper we go in this practice, the more meaningful Bhagavan's words become. Because when we first read, when we understand something, but the depth and the deep implication behind his words becomes clear to the extent to which we follow this practice of turning within.
Oh, thank you.
And Michael, it's about sort of taking off the masks of personalities and getting deeper and deeper. And
don't worry about the master personality. Cling to I am, and the master personality will
fall away.
Will fall away. Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bhagavan often talked, it slips away. He often used that term.
Okay.
So if you hold on to what is real, what is unreal will slip away.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about what is unreal. We are told this is unreal. When we are told this world is unreal, this mind is unreal, everything that appears to us is unreal, that what is the practical implication of that? Oh, if it's unreal, then I shouldn't attend to it. What is real? I am. Therefore, I should attend to I am.
Right.
That is, we need to understand not only the words, but the implication of the words.
Yes, that's clear now. Thank you. Good. Thank you, Selene.
Thank you.
I think we really need to thank Michael again for
thank
session.
Bhagavan.
And just sort of for everyone's information, I mean, normally we take not more than about 3.25 hours, 3.5 hours, but we always end up taking 4 hours. So that's just to answer questions.
It all happens according to Bhagavan's will. Nothing can happen without his grace. Not even an atom can move.